Prime Minister Thomas, Distinguished Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Distinguished Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Ministers of Government, Chairman of the Commonwealth Business Council, Director General, Professor Stiglitz, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I'm honored to have been invited to address this forum this morning. And as I look around and looked around earlier, I saw leaders and representatives of a cross-section of business sectors from within and without our region. And this, for me, is very encouraging, particularly at this time in our history, as we grapple with a deep economic and financial crisis. We gather here this morning as a precursor to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting to consider the theme, Partnership for a More Equitable and Sustainable Future, the Commonwealth and the Americas, and hoping to find some mutually workable solutions. I congratulate the Commonwealth Business Council for organizing this significant event, which I believe can provide an important platform for public-private sector dialogue and partnership, and ultimately pave the way for the deepening of those partnerships. Recent reports by international financial and lending institutions have all predicted a period of world economic instability. And this, of course, would include Commonwealth member states, as well as those of the Americas. Some Caribbean countries have already taken the step to go to the International Monetary Fund for support. And historically, this is the first time since the Bretton Woods institutions were established that so many Caribbean nations have at the same time had to be under IMF programs. The Caribbean, which comprises Commonwealth states as well as being part of the Americas, is expected to face a very difficult period of economic recession, which will be worse than the downturn witnessed during the post-September 11, 2001 tourism slump. Analysts predict, and we've already begun to see the evidence of this, that a reduction in global demand will negatively impact existing areas of recognized business activity in our region, with the areas of financial services, real estate, and tourism being the most vulnerable to this economic downturn. Added to this, the Caribbean countries will be further hampered by the new airline passenger duty put in place by one of the leading members of our Commonwealth. I have already made my country's position clear on this imposition. But the downturn in the areas of the economy just mentioned has impacted on the wider business community, particularly the retail and construction sectors, as well as the debt to GDP ratios of governments, contributing inter alia to falling economic activity and rising unemployment, as businesses are forced to cut costs and make other adjustments. Caribbean leaders are well aware that the potential loss of income from the productive sectors in the economy could easily undermine their development goals for some time and threaten the ability of governments to maintain the present standard of living and reduce pockets of poverty within their societies. For us, it is therefore no trifling matter that our adherence to the Commonwealth values and those of the Americas, as enshrined in the OAS Charter, have contributed to the development of a group of Caribbean nations that are by and large stable, strong, and resilient, even capable of facing responsibly the challenges posed by the current financial crisis. But we are also keenly aware that the current global economic crisis is not the only challenge that we face. Apart from the downturn in the global economy, we must contend with the problems adverted to by Prime Minister Thomas of climate change and environmental degradation, from poverty, from the growing threat of organized crime and drug trafficking, from the spread of weapons of mass destruction, and from the increased trafficking in small arms. Moreover, we are confronted with the challenge of realizing energy and food security in the face of high oil prices and increasing food prices, as well as the urgent need to reform the international financial architecture and the global trading system to ensure that the concerns of small states like ours are not subject to the vagaries of a few. The Commonwealth, with its share of tradition and global reach, as described in the Edinburgh Declaration in 1997, is uniquely placed through its member states in the Commonwealth, Caribbean, Americas to create linkages with non-Commonwealth member states in the hemisphere. But governments acting alone, and no matter how resourceful, cannot solve the challenges I have adverted to. This is increasingly being recognized and reflected in a global survey carried out in July of 2008, which showed that 84% of companies polled believe that businesses should help to address global issues. The Commonwealth Business Council and other key resource organizations of the Commonwealth Secretariat are therefore well placed to assist Commonwealth states in developing meaningful partnerships with the private sector, labor representatives, and the wider civil society to address a growing number of global issues. The success which the Commonwealth Business Forum has enjoyed since its first in London in October 1997 is testimony to the fact that the Commonwealth can impact on nations across organizational, regional, and hemispheric lines. Those who met at Edinburgh in 2007 were correct in their belief that the forum can be an important link between the private and public sectors and foster vibrant private sector links. I have no doubt that this forum will achieve the challenging yet important task of bringing the Commonwealth business sectors together to take part in an interesting and varied program that could lead to an expansion in much needed business activity across our regions. I therefore exhort businesses in the region to design creative projects that can actually attract these partnerships. Our region has a ready pool of young creative minds that flow each year from the campuses of our region's universities and tertiary institutions. In a recent address to the student alumni at the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill in Barbados, I underlined in simple terms that our UE students should look to become entrepreneurs on graduating, but this is easier said than done. Barbados and other Commonwealth Caribbean member states are economies that are small in size in terms of the relatively limited value of our total output. Our countries are open and dependent on the international trade in goods and services for generating of foreign exchange. We are dependent on imports for all aspects of our functioning and for the survival of our people. We also have limited resource bases, and this factor contributes significantly to our degree of openness. Our productive sectors are vulnerable to external shocks originating in major economies such as the United States, Japan, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, as well as the major developing countries of China, Mexico, and Brazil. And since economic events in any of these countries can have an impact on our economies, it is important that our region utilizes the opportunities and synergies which the Commonwealth possesses to establish trade and business alliances which will allow our region to achieve the path of sustainable economic development. Later today, many of you will participate in discussions on the role of the Commonwealth Caribbean in bridging the gap between the wider Commonwealth and the Americas and in developing relationships with African and Asian companies. There are a number of reasons why I believe that the Commonwealth Caribbean presents an attractive location for Commonwealth investors and companies wanting to invest or do business in the hemisphere. Barbados is of the view that our region uniquely positions itself to provide a gateway into the Americas and beyond. First, our region has made tremendous strides towards economic integration and is on track for the implementation of the single market phase of the Caribbean single market and economy. From our perspective, the CSME represents an opportunity for CARICOM to harmonize our laws and administrative procedures that will create a single economic space. On completion of the single market phase, some 450 restrictions will have been removed, thereby making it easier for capital flows and the provision of services